You are listening to Girls in Low Places.
We're like the country music podcast that your mum banned you from listening to.
Let's go, you're free.
Who let us backstage, honestly?
Girls in Low Places, my GILPERS. I am here today flying solo. This is my first rodeo doing a solo episode. And my country music girls, we started this podcast together to have a place where if you were a girl who loved country music in the UK, you could chat about it in a lighthearted way with us. So for me to be doing this on my own, although it feels really super weird and like I'm, back in my teenage bedroom talking into my dad's camcorder, it also means that I can talk direct to you, GILPERS, and we can have a back and forth in this community, which is what I kind of like. When I had the idea of the podcast and I sort of told Ozzy about it, that was where this podcast was born from, right? So we found that if you didn't have anyone else who liked country music in your circle of friends, which is kind of quite likely sometimes because not everyone thinks they like country music until, as we all know, they get educated and they love it. But basically, I had Ozzy and I was so lucky that Ozzy and I have each other to gossip and chat and chit chat. But I just thought, if you didn't have anyone to go to these gigs with, if you didn't have that friend, who are you talking to about all of this? And that's why we set up Girls in Low Places. Ozzy has a big girl job. So she is doing some lawyering this week that means that she can't do the podcast. And I was thinking, well, I could interview someone, I could do this. But I was like, no, I want to interview the GILPERS. I want to get up close and personal and hear from you what you want from this podcast. Because ultimately this community, it's not mine and Ozzy's, it's ours. Like it is the country community that's for the girls. That is for the girls. I read somewhere the other day on one of those country music groups, the ones. If you know the ones, I've spoken about them before. They're full of the old school country fans and some new fans, I'm sure. But like generally, those groups on Facebook are kind of like the community that has been around forever and they've loved country music from the start, blah, 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 blah. And I don't really know what that means, loving country music from the start. I mean, country music started a long time ago, so I don't know if they were in the womb loving country music, but they can be a little bit cliquey. And they can be a little bit, we don't want they called it the pink cowboy hat group, ruining our concerts. All I'm going to say is I've loved country music for a long time, but I think the GILPERS, I think we are the pink cowboy hat group. Even if we're not wearing the actual pink country music hats to the gigs, we are that new energy. We are defiant in the face of people who say that country music is only this or that or for different types of people. We are saying, no, there is a new wave of country music listeners and we are here and we are loud and proud and we will wear that pink cowboy hat if we want to, and we will take selfies at a gig and we will have a good old time and not stand there silently. We will dance. We will have a drink. I think the GILPERS, and I know we all respect gig etiquette, of course. Ozzy's somewhere listening to this right now going, yeah, okay, Mrs. Hammered at every gig. We all respect gig etiquette, of course, and we take that very seriously. But I think the division needs to stop. And I think that Girls in Low Places is the perfect community to stop the division, to have more inclusivity to the newer crowd who are fighting the good fight and enjoying modern country music and the old stuff and the new stuff and everything in between. But country music is getting bigger and we need to have a place where everybody can talk about it and listen and chat and laugh. And look, you guys have been liking, subscribing. You have been giving us that support and we love you for it. But we want you to tell us more of what you want to hear from. Do you want to see more interviews with me chatting up Riley Green? I mean, we all want to see that. I mean, I could just watch that on loop, to be honest. But do you want to see more interviews? Do you want more things between me and Ozzy? Do you want more sort of interviews with you guys, the GILPERS? Do you want to be on the podcast? We want to know what you want to see because we want to make this community the best country community ever. It already is, to be honest. You Gilpers. You Gilpers are the best. Whenever we meet you at gigs, I'm just like obsessed with all of you. Absolutely obsessed. Okay, so we have got lots of questions from you guys coming up that I'm going to answer no holds barred. But first of all, I really want to address the elephant in the room. And that has to be, my Gilpers, Carrie Underwood at Trump's inauguration. Now, look, I am not a huge politics girly at the dinner table. You know, I'm the light relief girl. I'm the one who kind of knows what's going on. I have my own views, but I'm not going to put them onto you guys today. But let's get into it because it is a hot topic. Just for the listeners who might be listening to this out of sync, the inauguration was last night. So I watched it. Ozzy was texting me saying, "Are you watching this?" Oh my God. I was surprised, like everybody else, to see that Carrie Underwood was going to be playing this gig. I did know that her husband was conservative. I knew that. And I do think I always do take my country musicians and their politics, separately. They're two. I try and separate the two, which is interesting because then with the Zack Bryan stuff, I don't separate the two. And I have been boycotting a lot of listening to his music because of everything that's been going on. So what's the difference between that and not boycotting someone because of their politics? I don't know. That's a bigger question. But I think my main thing that I was shocked that Carrie was doing it for was because she is such a woman about female empowerment. Like pretty much all her songs are female empowerment. And this election has been so heavy on the fight against women's rights over their bodies. And it just seemed like a real mismatch from her audience to be doing this at such a fraught time for women in terms of politics. So that was my first thought. I was like, I'm not sure what's going on here. I think this is a bad move from her team, which is why, guys, I think there is a conspiracy theory. So for those who watched the inauguration last night, Carrie was about to sing with a backing track and the backing track cuts out and it's all a bit awkward. And then she, like a great vocalist would, just goes, "Guys, I'm going to do it a cappella," and gets everyone singing along and the nation to come together and be a collective. Which then has meant that there has been a really big support on social media for her for being such a professional in the moment, for, just being such a great vocalist that could do that and rallied everybody together in the face of adversity. My thoughts are this. I think someone in her team knew that this was going to happen. I don't know if Carrie herself knew that it was going to happen. I hope for my sort of feelings of honesty in the world that wasn't the case, but I think she knew that track was going to cut out. And I think that their team, and maybe even Trump's team, knew that there'd been a lot of backlash about this and about her doing it. And I think that this is one way that on some level, everybody could go, well, she did a great job. Well, that was a good thing. She brought everybody together. And in the statement that she made about playing this inauguration, she said something along the lines of, "It's a great way for our country to be united at this moment." That was the one sentence that she said about the whole thing. The country is going to come together and we need to be united as a country. So that makes me just think, what a way for a musician to bring everyone together is to get them all singing along a cappella. It's the perfect way. I mean, we've seen, Lewis Capaldi do this at Glastonbury. We have seen so many artists do this in a time of, you go back to Freddie Mercury at Live Aid, getting a big crowd to sing or a country to sing all together to support an artist because there's no track behind them is like, it's like the oldest trick in the book. And so my thoughts are that if you never see me again after this episode, I mean, I'm somewhere in Azkaban and Trump is got his foot on my neck. That's my thoughts. I just think that there is no tech ever that would fail us like that on such a huge event. Somebody knew what they were doing. Or the other conspiracy theory could be that somebody wanted to, I don't know, ruin her singing and make it all a stressful time, and they were actually, someone from the left or something. It could be that. It could be a sort of terrorist attack on music. I don't know. But I think there's something spooky about all of it. So I also, just to touch on the topic of the inauguration while we're here, girls, don't worry, this is not going to be all about politics, but it's just such a shame to me that it feels like this has reignited the country music with Trump synergy. There were so many country music artists. Pretty much all the artists were country music artists who were there in support. And I think country music had come such a long way in inclusivity, in supporting different artists and different styles of politics. It's still got a long way to go. We know that. But I think this has felt like a little bit of a step back. I don't know about you girls, but watching this from a UK perspective, it is just, it's like a soap opera that you can't, it's like a car crash that you can't look away from, and it's dividing a lot of the stars. And I can only imagine what it's like in Nashville at the moment, with how much the politics is probably playing into everything else in terms of the music industry. It is interesting, and I'm sure there is tea to be had. And I tell you girls, I will find out that tea. But spinning off from old Trumpy, he did come in and save the day and save our Americans on TikTok, didn't he? Thank the Lord. I mean, I was stressed. I was sitting there thinking, how are we going to get our country music fix if we can't access the Americans on TikTok? What are we going to do? I need my daily Morgan Wallen videos of people's perspectives of being in the pit. I need them. They are like water in this desert that is January. I need them. So I'm glad that TikTok has come back. But it was hilarious. I did see a couple of people. I saw Priscilla Block, a couple of other people just doing these really big montages, the Montana Boys being like, you changed our lives, TikTok. This gave people a chance who could never have a chance before, and it all being super emotional. And then next morning it's like, hey, how y'all doing? We're back. It is probably one of the most powerful weapons in the world. TikTok and Taylor Swift. That's what I think. They are the two biggest nuclear weapons that we have. But look, in slightly lighter news, in news that just made me smile and think, yes, that I saw this week on said TikTok, is that Tucker Wetmore has confirmed he is single, which is exciting because, girls, that means he's going to be single when he is coming over to play Country to Country. And for those of you that don't know Tucker Wetmore, get to know. He's hot. He's got so many great bops, and I think he's going to be a real highlight of Country to Country. So very excited. There's lots of exciting things coming with Girls in Low Places and Country to Country. I am so buzzing to tell you guys what we're going to be doing, but I can't right now. But what I can say is that Girls in Low Places is going to have merch ready for you to buy for Country to Country, so we can all see each other as fellow girls in low places around Country to Country, and we can just be like, it's like sending up a flare, like, caw, girl in low place, we need to talk about what's going on this weekend. So if you see us that weekend, obviously come up to us and have a little yap. Right, Gilpers, I am handing over the control now to you. We're going to get these questions going, and we are not holding back, okay? First question, how do I find a cowboy in the UK, Katie? It's a good one. I think we're all looking. So I think that there are UK cowboys. We know that. I see them floating around at the gigs. I see them sneaking around. Sometimes I mistake the gays for the cowboy hats, and I think, oh, he's hot. I'm like, oh, no, he's at Kelsey Ballerini. We know why he's here. But how do we find them? How do we secure them? How do we live our Nashville dreams out in the UK? Well, girls, I may be a little bit behind on this, and I know it's been around for a while, but I have joined Muddy Matches. Now, some of you may know what it is. Some of you may be like, what's she talking about? Muddy Matches is basically like a Tinder or a Hinge, but for farmers or people who like the rural lifestyle. So you can, on this app, it's not an app. On this website, you can put your ratio of how muddy you are to how urban you are. So if you're like got a dog but you live in the city, then you can like put it to like 20% muddy, 80% urban. So you can kind of match up with the people who maybe live in a city, but they like to go on an occasional dog walk every other weekend, that sort of vibe. I think it's really good for dog owners like myself, because I think one of the main things is you don't want to meet someone you really like and then they're not interested in having a dog in their life. That's not what we want. I mean, also, I always say if someone's not a dog person, that sends my red flags going anyway. But you definitely do, if you're a dog walker or a dog owner. If you're a dog owner, you definitely want to have someone in your life who loves dogs as much as you do, or maybe they have a dog of their own, all of that stuff. So that is great if you live in a city. But if you are more rural and you do want that kind of like farmer, rustic tree chopping down, what they call tree surgeons. Oh, tree surgeons, guys. That is what we all need. We all just need a tree surgeon. But look, if you go on Muddy Matches, that's where they are. And I'll tell you, it's like Hinge and Tinder in terms of there are some absolute munters on there. There are some men I would never want to talk to in a million years. But there is the occasional that I've seen on there that goes, you know what? He doesn't look too bad. And I think it's just a nice breath of fresh air for us all to experiment and go on Muddy Matches and see what happens. Some of the biographies on here already fill me with so much more joy than Hinge or Tinder. So, for example, we have one guy that I was looking at, and he was like, I keep 300 women happy every single day. And I was like, what? But then realized that he was a sheep herder. So, I mean, hilarious. There was another guy who was a dairy farmer who was like, I'll milk you for all you've got. Like, love it. So that is I think that's a good way to start finding our country cowboys. But I also think maybe the Girls in Low Places, we should do some like blind date situation where we should find like 10 hunky cowboys and we should get 3 GILPERS. Maybe I should do a dating show. Oh my God. Is that not the best idea ever? I can be Cilla Black and we can find our cowboys. GILPERS, if you are down for that, tell me, because I think that's probably genius. A country music themed dating show. You know that I would be the host of that in a heartbeat. I will keep you updated on the Muddy Match progress. And if you never hear from me ever again, I am buried in a farm somewhere under 300 sheep that are being herded by this man. What would be on the GILP rider? So for those listeners who don't know what rider is, it's like when a country star is doing a tour or doing a concert, and they will say what they want in their dressing room. It's very famous that Mariah only wanted like blue M&Ms and nothing else, had to pick out all the other colours sort of thing. So like you can be a right diva about it. So, okay, what would we have on the GILP rider? First of all, Ozempic. That would be great. Who doesn't want Ozempic? So we'd love that, because every time we record this podcast, we are horrified about how much we look awful on camera. So, one of the biggest downsides of doing a podcast, guys, if you are thinking of starting any sort of podcast about any topic, you look back and you go, God, do I really look like that? Oh, honestly, it's awful. So first of all, we'd have some Ozempic. I think Aussie somewhere I can hear is agreeing with me somewhere, because like who wouldn't? Then I think I'm a tequila girly. But I also am very partial to a moonshine tough nut. Have you guys had the tough nut one? Oh my God, it's so good. It is like the inside of a Ferrero Rocher in a shot. If you are somebody who does not like shots, get the moonshine. Get moonshine tough nut. It is amazing. And I think I was talking to the guys at Moonshiner the other day, and I think they've launched a creamy one. So it's kind of like a Bailey's version of the tough nut. Oh, I tried it at the Long Road, and I tell you, absolutely stunning. And I think, you know what? If we were doing a live show, we would probably also need maybe some Valium. I think I think Ozzy would be nervous in a good way. And I think I would be overexcited in a bad way. So I think between the both of us, we could do with some anxiety meds or some Valium, or just, let's just go the whole way and just tranquilize us out, because that would be too much. I would love to do a live show, but watch this space. I think it's something that we are going to be looking to do in 2025, because we want to get all the country gals together. We really do. We love you girls. Okay, what has been your most memorable moment doing this podcast so far? I think my most memorable moment would probably be the Russell Dickerson interview, because he literally was outside the arena and he just literally walked past me on the street, and I just managed to catch him at the right time going into the concert venue. But then also we then did a proper interview with him up on his dressing room. As lots of you guys know, the sun was setting. It was like that perfect August evening, and it was just magic. It was just magic. He was great. We were drinking and partying in this dressing room before he went on stage. The show was fantastic. And it's just like moments like that where it is very pinch me, because at the end of the day, me and Ozzy, we're fans. We are huge fans. We are just total fangirling. And this idea of doing this podcast came out of me feeling that I wanted to do something with country music. I had always tried to get a job in country music in some way in the UK. And as I'm sure lots of you girls know, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to infiltrate any of those music industry things, because the jobs are few and far between and there's a lot of people competing for them. I had a really good CV of working with celebs for years, but I hadn't done the music industry, so I could never get into this sort of sphere that I love so much. So the fact that the podcast has gone so well for me and Ozzy, and we are in Russell Dickerson's dressing room, be aware, our minds are blown just as much as yours. We cannot believe it. So I'm a big believer of, if you want to do something or you want to be something in the world, just do it. Sometimes you have to just do it yourself. And yes, it takes time. And yes, it can maybe be a bit of an investment. If you really want something, you just have to be about it, do it, get it started, and everything else will then follow and fall into place for you in whatever form that takes. I mean, there's some aspects of the podcast that's so much harder than I could ever have imagined, and so much more work than it looks from the outside in. But there are so many things about the podcast that are so rewarding and have gone brilliantly in a way that me and Ozzy could never have imagined. So yeah, that's my top tip to take away from this solo ep is, just go and do it and be about it. So that leads on to another question that I've got from one of the GILPERS, which is, what gave you the confidence to start this podcast? Which I found hilarious as a question, because I was like, are they saying what gave you the confidence? Who gave you the audacity? As I said, myself. I just was like, Ozzy, do you want to do this? We sat around at Country to Country, I think it was 2-3 years ago. And we were just like, we need to be doing something with this scene. We love it so much. We're so involved, in our minds, but we're just not involved in any real sense. We just wanted to be a part of this world, and somehow we've managed to do it. So yeah, don't give yourself the confidence to start something. I don't think it's about confidence. It's about being ready to get things wrong. It's about realizing that nobody else in this world is thinking about you as much as you are. Like, yes, there's the occasional comment I get from, old friends that I might bump into saying, "Oh, you're doing the podcast now? Oh, okay." Like, it's not for everyone, but you're not for everyone. And trust me, no one is thinking about everything as much as you are. And there is no point in worrying what other people are going to say about you, think about you, feel about you. And I remember there was a country influencer who came up to us. I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a country influencer who came up to us at Long Road and was like, "Oh God, girls, everyone else thinks you're really stupid, but I really like your podcast." And I remember both of us were a bit taken aback by that, being like, "Oh, are we really stupid?" And then we were like, "Yeah, we are really stupid. This platform is meant to be a little bit stupid. It's meant to be fun. We are not a news channel. We are the girls in low places." So actually, I took that as a huge compliment. But you've got to just have that attitude of like, there are going to be people that say what you're doing is dumb or reckless, or the main thing is you guys are listening, you guys are watching, we see you out. And I'm like, there is a space for us. There is a space for us country young girlies who just want to have a bit more fun with country music. Okay, so this is from Matilda. Do you want to live in Nashville? Is that the end goal? That's an interesting one. If you'd have spoken to me this time last year, I would have said yes. I would have said, we're going to start the podcast in the UK. And I think I'd like to then go and live in Nashville and like sort of report back to the UK directly from Nashville. And look, I still think that there is something in that for the GILPERS. Like, that would be incredible, wouldn't it? To like have us like on the ground. So we're not like reacting to everything, from the UK's perspective and from the UK's timeline all the time. Like, I could be in there, guys, for you. Really getting what I will say about Nashville so I spent, I'd say about a month there last year overall in total. And the one thing that I felt when I came back, and it wasn't just from the copious amounts of drinking, but I felt exhausted. And I think it wasn't just the partying. It was also the fact that Nashville is very much like LA in the sense of it is a town full of people trying to achieve a dream. And because of that, there is a lot of competition and there is a lot of, I would say, a bubble of people all trying to get something from each other. And even though I would say Nashville is a much nicer environment than LA is for that, and I think that everyone does want everyone to win in Nashville, I still found, as a British person, that quite tiring to be around constantly. Like, I feel like if I lived there, it would be a lot of work, and everything you did in your personal life would also be your work life. And for me, I don't know about you girls, but I quite like having my work life and then having my personal life separate, she says, while talking about her personal life on a podcast every single week. But I think you know what I'm saying, as in what we do in the UK really well is we do have that division, I feel. We do appreciate the fast life and the slow life at the same time. We do have the countryside. We do have an appreciation for putting things aside. And although London is vibrant and busy, and, I've had, as I said, like, I was a model agent for years, like, that was a very intense, exciting, dramatic, competitive industry to be a part of. But still, at the weekends when I went home, I could put a pin in that and not go to every Starbucks, bar, everything, and everyone say, well, what do you do and what can you do for me and what can I do for you? I think that was the only thing that I found with Nashville since being recently, that I felt that it was like, would you ever be able to escape the music industry? Would you ever be able to be Katie and not be Katie from Girls in Low Places? That was my only thought with it last time that I went. So I love it. I think obviously if someone walked in here and said, hey, you've got a one-way ticket to Nashville and a visa to match, of course I'm going, guys. Of course I'm going to do it. But I do think sometimes we can idealize these music towns, and actually we do need to appreciate that in the UK we can dip in and we can enjoy country music, but we can also go for a nice dog walk and have a cup of tea and it not be like so all consuming. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it recently, but I go back and forth. And as I say, some hot American country star or country man comes in and says, "Here's your one-way ticket to Nashville and here's the visa." Of course I'm going. I'm not going to let you down. God, this is so weird. It is almost like I'm just doing a really long voice note to like one of my poor, all suffering friends who they just have to listen to all of my voice notes and times two. Guys, imagine having me as a friend and how much I'm on voice notes, especially when I'm single. Like, obviously, you need to talk to your girls, and I about whatever drama's been going on that particular week. Okay, so we've got a question here. What country album means the most to you? Mine is Maren Morris, Hero. I'm dying to know yours, Katie. Ooh, what country album means the most to me? I've got two answers here. I think a country album that really actually means an awful lot to me is actually Shania Twain's Come On Over, because I think that was my entryway into country music. And I know that Georgia Millie, when she came on the podcast, she said this as well, that Shania Twain, that album, I think, was in a lot of our mums' cars, was something they listened to when they were doing the washing up. And I think that Shania really got me into the country scene and the country vibe. Do you know an album that actually really got me? And I don't know why. I think maybe it was because 2020 just sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, that I didn't feel like I was in the right job. I didn't feel like I was in the right place. And we also had a lot more time on our own to listen to the music that we kind of liked, right? So we would sit at home or go on walks or runs or whatever. So there'd be more time for music in 2020, I felt. But it's actually Tennille Arts' Love, Heartbreak, and Everything in Between. Like, I saw her live, I think it must have been like a year after that in London, and I think she's fantastic. And I think she's one of those ones who really gets underrated. But that album has a lot in it that I feel is a coming of age, coming out of your 20s, maybe into your 30s, because I turned 30 in 2020. So that really got me. So if you haven't listened to that album, give it a go. I think it's pop, it's sugary, but it's really good. So yeah. Okay, this is from Georgette. Chances that Zack Bryan's going to have a full Menti B before BST and Council. I mean, it's likely, isn't it? I'd say we're at 50-50, which isn't good. Somewhere in America, he might be like, well, I can play that again. But Hyde Park in London, it really is a special place for Americans to come and play and feel the energy of that special place. So I think he's going to make it, to be honest. Whether I am, still undecided. Amy has given a really interesting question here. Are there any interviews that you were disappointed in and not what you expected? Okay. So there is one person that I was really shocked. Their on-stage demeanor was completely the opposite to their off-stage demeanor. Oh, God, guys, I don't know if I can actually say who it was. There was one guy, and maybe some of you can deduct it, I don't know, but there was one guy that we interviewed, and I was expecting him to have charisma coming out of his ears. I expected him to be really fun, really lively. And I expected him to be, I mean, look, I don't mind if someone's not as like attractive as they are on stage. That's one thing. Like, some people do have that rock star effect kind of vibe going on. But when they're completely like, their whole personality is different, that's when I feel a little bit like, oh, are we being missold something here, which is funny because like I'd say like with interviewing Riley Green, he was the opposite. So he is, charming and lovely on stage, but he is so funny when you interview him or when you talk to him. He's just got that complete like hilarity about him that you wouldn't see really as much when he's on stage. So it can flip both ways. But this other guy, not Riley, this other guy, I'm going to give some clues. Quite young, kind of very, very charismatic on stage, big dancer on stage, big showman, was very meek, very uncomfortable to talk to, or seemed very uncomfortable when he came into the room. When he came into the room to be interviewed, it was almost like a 15-year-old teenager who didn't really want to be there, but kind of had to be, but like was also quite uncomfortable, quite nervous, but like in a kind of way, like I don't really want to have to do this sort of thing, which I understand. Like when you are an artist, you've flown over from America, and then you've got me with my silly pink microphone turn up, who they've never seen, they've no idea. Like at least when they're in America, they kind of get like, oh, this is so and so from iHeartRadio, or this is so and so from CNN. I don't know. So they'd be like, okay, so this is an important thing to do. When they say, oh, this is Katie from Girls in Low Places, don't get me wrong, I can sometimes see how they're like, Jesus, who is this? And I have no idea, and I'm jet lagged and I'm tired and I just want to get on stage. But this guy, he wasn't rude by any means. He just wasn't what he projects to be, or he wasn't what the label project him to be. And that for me, I really want to believe that the artist is being authentic when they're on stage. Of course, they turn it on. Of course, they get a bit like, crazy when they've got the adrenaline rush of being on stage. But this was such a different feeling. It was very sharply, he was Jekyll and Hyde. That maybe is a bit extreme, but that's the best way I can describe it to you. So I'm trying to give you guys more clues as to who that is. Okay, bit more fun. We've got a shag, a marry, a void, Morgan Wallen, Riley Green, or Brett Young. Whew, tricky that, because Brett is super tall. Like I had no idea how tall Brett was until I met him, and I was like, my God, he is so tall and so hunky. Look, I'm going to be PG here and say Brett Young's got to go because I swear he's married, and, we don't want to break up a happy home. Not today anyway. Comes down to Morgan and Riley for the shag and the marry. Oh, difficult one, that one, actually. Because, if we're going to go finances, Morgan is obviously the bigger star right now. So, Morgan, I'll marry you, but I'll probably get cheated on because it's Morgan and he's a naughty little boy. So, which I suppose isn't too bad because as long as we don't get a prenup, I'm still getting the money. And then I can go and shag Riley Green after he's cheated on me. So I reckon, marry Morgan, shag Riley, probably end up with Riley in the end, poetic. And Brett Young can be the minister. I think I've just lined up my dreams for tonight nicely there. What would you guys do? Comment below. Comment below and tell us. So, dear Girls in Low Places, I am a small town girl who recently moved to the big city. I'm chasing my dreams just like in a country song. My city friends just don't understand my love for cowboy boots, music, and country twang. How can I stay true to my country music roots while learning to love city life? It's an interesting one. Look, I think in the UK, like we feel like we need to get that hit of country, and especially if people around us don't really get it, it's kind of hard to get that fix sometimes, other than going to a gig. And sometimes we can't all afford a gig, sometimes we can't afford a gig every week. But the interesting thing is that there are so many new country music venues that have started popping up that is kind of more like you can just go and have a drink at the bar and listen to a cover band, or just even them playing the music. I mean, we went to Red Dog Saloon the other day, me and Ozzy, and they were playing music there. Little Nashville. There's Bunny Jackson's in Manchester. There's so many. There's Dukes of Highgate that is up in North London. There's so many that are coming to give us that fix where you could just go in and you could have bloody tap water if you can't afford it. And you just feel like maybe I've just been transported to Nashville for an hour. So I think that's a really good way to start off. I think secondly, if you love country music, have your birthday party as a country music birthday party. Don't worry about the fact that other people might not get it. Organize that country brunch with your friends. Yes, some other friends might be like, what? I don't like country music. But trust me, when they go to a country brunch, they'll be like, oh my God, I do know all this stuff. Or I have heard this. Or actually, I love this song. So I think it's also about like educating your friends around you, getting them to come along, bringing them along. That is a big thing. And so many of my friends, since I started doing the podcast, have gone, I think I actually like country music. So get people around you educated and into it, and they will start coming with you to more gigs or more things or you'll be able to just sit and chat about it. Girls in Low Places is a great place to start. You can always come and listen to us. We'll give you a little hit. I would rather have a birthday party these days with two people that will enjoy what I want to do rather than having a birthday party for 20 people that I know that they might enjoy just a drink at a normal bar. I don't care what you want anymore, okay? This is the year 2025. We don't care what other people want. We do what we want on our birthdays, okay? And if you are hosting something, even if it's just a party at your house and you want to put on country music or you want to listen to this, something, it's your house. You do it. You do what you want to do. Don't feel judged by the country music community or by your people who aren't in the country music community. Do you? Because at the end of the day, music is subjective. We can all listen to what we want to listen to. It's not that tricky, but it just does seem to get people really up in their feelings about it. Like country music was such an embarrassing thing to like for such a long time. There still is a little bit of an edge of, I think, some other genres look down on country still. But I think that is changing. So my advice to you, if you are a girl living in London feeling like, oh, I just really wish I lived in America, or I really wished I lived in the countryside because that's where, you know, I can enjoy country music at its best and I can be authentically a country music fan. No, get rid of that idea. We can all be country music fans no matter what we are doing in life. And yeah, that's where Girls in Low Places is heading, okay? We are country gals and we need to stick together. So look, this has been my solo episode. It's actually been really fun. Ozzy is back on the podcast next week and I'm going to tell her all about it. But I think this has been great. I feel really connected to you, Gilpers. We are one. We are one. And I want to see more of the questions and the interaction that we've seen this week for my solo episode. We want to hear what you want from the podcast. Do you want more interviews? Do you want more solo eps? Do you want more together eps? Do you want a solo ep from Ozzy? I mean, do you want to know more about me and Ozzy and how we got here and what is going on in our lives? We want to know what you want to know. So do DM us, do comment, do like, do subscribe. Just get the word out there. And if you have other country gals who you think might like this podcast, please do share it with them because we are a community that is very niche in the UK, but we are powerful. Okay? Gals, love ya. See you next week with Ozzy. Bye.
You are listening to Girls in Low Places.
We're like the country music podcast that your mum banned you from listening to.
Let's go, you freak.
Who let us backstage, honestly?